You're listening to Psych with Mike. For more episodes or to connect with the show with comments, ideas, or to be a guest, go to www.psychwithmike.com. Follow the show on Twitter @PsychWithMike or like the Facebook page @PsychWithMike. Now, here's Psych with Mike.
Welcome into the Psych with Mike library. I am here, as always, with Mr. Brett Newcomb.
Hello.
How you doing?
Great.
Yeah, I'm kind of hungry.
Yeah. You're probably stressed.
Probably.
Spend some time with me. You're always stressed.
You should make me less stressed.
Nah. My job is to be provocative and evocative.
Yeah,
that's
but
stressful.
With a lot of other people, that's probably true. But I find being with you to be much more soothing than it is stressful.
So do I.
Are you saying you find the time with me or the time with yourself?
The time with me.
Okay.
The time I spend by myself is when I'm with my best friend.
I'm the only person who really understands me anyway.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's probably true. So people eat when they don't need to. People eat when they're not hungry. They eat
when they're bored.
They're bored
Yeah.
when they're feeling bad.
They eat when they're anxious.
Yeah. So why do people eat in situations like that?
You know, the classic Freudian psychoanalytical theory is something you learned very, very early in your childhood. Whenever you were upset and cried, somebody put something in your mouth and said, "Here, eat this." Mm-hmm. And so you learned early on to pair the association of oral gratification, satisfaction,
mm-hmm.
food, taste, whatever, fulfillment in your mouth to feeling better.
Yeah.
It made your crying stop, or if you were angry, it made your anger diminish because it distracted you with something else.
And that oral fixation probably explains why people like to smoke and do other things.
That's part of the theory.
Yeah. You believe in that or don't?
I do.
Okay, yeah. Because I think there's absolutely some validity to that idea that you can have an oral fixation and that can have a soothing, calming effect on a person's mood.
Absolutely.
That if they stimulate areas around the mouth, that
bite my fingernails when I'm anxious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so that can be a reason.
Suck my thumb as a child.
Right. Or you suck your thumb as an adult, I guess.
I've actually seen people do that.
Mm-hmm.
Grown men curl up in a fetal ball on the floor and suck their thumb.
Mm-hmm.
Turn the lights out, sit in the dark, and suck their thumb because it made them feel better, made their anxieties quiet.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and that's one then reason why a person might eat to try and help them feel better is because there could be something about oral stimulation that calms a person's nerves.
Yes, very much so.
And there's also another reason, which is that your gut actually has more serotonin receptors than your brain.
Well, that's kind of a newer learning in terms of trying to understand overeating and weight issues. Why do people eat when they know it's not healthy for them to eat more, to put on more weight? And historically, culturally, we've shamed people for being obese or for being fat. You know, the implication is that they're lazy to the extent that they have no self-discipline. They just can't, push the plate away. Don't put so much on the plate. And so there's a whole industry for trying to message to these people how to change their behavior. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Or it works for a while and it doesn't, like diets. Diets work if you short-term focus and discipline yourself to do anything different. It'll work and you'll lose weight. Mm-hmm. But when you go off of it and you're not focused on it, when you go off the diet, you give yourself a break because it's the holidays or I'm going on vacation or whatever. And you put all that weight back on, and typically, because you now need to reward yourself because you've deprived yourself, you'll overconsume. Because I haven't had ice cream in 6 months because I was trying to lose weight. Well, now I'm going to eat a lot of ice cream. And I do. So,
and there's also biology that they're finding associated with that. So
Yeah.
the leptin, which is a hormone produced in fat cells, that scientists now believe signals satiation. So I'm full, I can stop eating. That actually plays a significant role. When a person goes on a diet, your body interprets that as we are being deprived of calories. There must be some environmental factor that's making food scarce, so that when you start to eat unregulated, your body says we have to now save some calories for the next time we go into a famine situation. And so it adds, it's called a set point. So you have a biological set point with how much weight that your body will naturally carry. And your body adds another 20% to your previous weight. Yeah, so that you'll have some insulation for hard times.
Yeah, and then there are people that go and have bariatric surgery, stomach surgeries, to reduce the size of their stomach and limit their ability to eat that much food. And they have dramatic amounts of weight loss for a year or two sometimes. But then they very often, there's a very significant percentage of them that eat their way back through that.
Oh, absolutely.
And put all that weight back on and more, which is what you're saying. You put more on.
I'm surprised.
Or is it more on?
Could be either one.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that the medical community ever thought that was a good idea, because we're not automobiles where if you take a part out and replace it with another part, that part just is there. That part's immutable. It's not going to change. We're human organisms. We're biological. And so it only stands to reason that if you reduce the size of the stomach, the biological organism is going to be able to find ways to get around that. And people do. And they find out that, as you say, a couple of years later, they're putting on as much weight or more, and they've had this surgery. And where do you go then from there?
Well, maybe you go back and get a different surgery.
Yeah.
Maybe you just get heavy again, and maybe you die.
Yeah. So we know that obesity...
But one of the things, it really distresses me. Insurance companies will pay for someone who's morbidly obese, over 150 pounds overweight, to have bariatric surgery.
But won't pay for psychotherapy?
No, they won't pay to have their skin fixed afterwards, because that's considered to be cosmetic. So I know several people who have had bariatric surgery and lost significant amounts of weight, look really good until you see them naked, and then they've just got folds and folds of excess skin and scarred tissue and stretched out, and they can't get it fixed, and without paying tens of thousands of dollars for plastic surgery, because it's not considered to be a component of the medical issue.
Wow.
But to me, it is.
That should just be malpractice. I just can't even imagine.
Well, it's not the doctor, it's the insurance company.
Oh, I guess an insurance company can't be accused of malpractice. I wonder. Anyway.
Well, but see, in America, insurance companies don't exist to provide coverage and treatment. They exist to make money.
Right.
So their job and their corporate structures is to reduce the payouts as much as they can. And so while a legitimate, immediate medical case can be brought that says, if we don't reduce the size of this person's stomach, they're going to die from a heart attack. Here's the data. So we can do that. But if you say, well, they're not going to feel good about themselves and they're less likely to change their behavioral pattern, that's all speculative.
So we know that there's an ever-increasing foundation for the biology of weight. We know that obesity is one of the number one health concerns in the United States. The pandemic's not making that easier. It's making that worse.
Obesity and type 2 diabetes are pandemics now. And a significant portion of that doesn't have to do with a lack of self-discipline to overeat. It has to do with the food marketing and agricultural systems in the United States that are supported by the federal government, paying farmers subsidies to grow certain kinds of crops so that those crops get into the food market, like corn. And corn sugar, corn syrup is in most of what we eat and drink. And it's addictive. and it's everywhere. It's pervasive.
Right.
It's really, really hard to buy food that doesn't have that in
Right.
it. So there are economies that support that in our system.
Yeah.
And if you take corn syrup away from our diet, corn ingredients away from our diet, those economies are going to suffer upheaval and damage. And they'll be replaced by other economies, some new thing to go in the diet.
But
So does the government pick the winner? They have. In this case, they picked the corn farmers.
right.
And the food producers, the mass immediate consumption prepared food market. Those are the winners that have been picked.
But I know you agree with this even before I ask the question. But don't you agree that if high fructose corn syrup is in orange soda, and that's a 2-liter bottle for 99 cents, and milk is $4 a gallon, and you've got a family of 4,
Right.
and you're living on a fixed income
food
or even
stamps.
disability,
Yeah.
right? And
Well,
then
the food stamp, they won't let you buy certain things.
Yeah.
Because politically they say, well, you can't
buy
that.
alcohol.
Yeah.
Can't buy
You
right.
can't buy cigarettes. You can't buy certain foods.
But you can
But
buy.
you can buy crap. You can buy
Right.
5,000 packages of Doritos. You can buy orange
Well,
juice.
and you have to, because those kinds of, just horrible non-nutritional foods are cheaper than going to the store and buying either healthy foods.
So societally, a
Yeah.
lot of those people live in what are called food deserts. They live in urban communities where they don't have gardens, they don't have access to fresh greens, there's not a farmer's market nearby, and they go to the grocery stores in their communities, some of which are boarded up with bars and stuff, and they have armed guards in front, and they buy what's there, and what's there are
Right.
those products.
Right.
So, because that's what people can afford on their food stamps, and they've got to fill their bellies. And so I can buy 10 pounds of potatoes cheaper than I can buy 1 pound of fresh greens. So which am I going to buy to feed my family?
And we're not going to be able to solve the sociological issues that are associated with this, but we do want to be able to provide people with information that they can act on. And the thing for me that really makes sense is this connection between our mood and our gut. And gastroenterologists now are calling the gut the enteric nervous system, meaning that it is actually vitally important in the entire nervous system that we have in our body. So now we have the brain, which is a nervous system. We have the central nervous system, which people probably already know about. We have the autonomic nervous system, which has a sympathetic and a parasympathetic branch. And now we have the enteric nervous system. So what we're finding is that the biology of our nervous system, how our body gets information, processes it, and moderates on it, is way more complex than we ever thought. But we know now that there are more serotonin receptors in our gut than there are in our brain, which means that our guts play a really significant role in our mood regulation.
Yeah, there's a lot of literature and research out there now about the gut biome and all the different bacteria and probiotics and things that are involved in that, and the importance of a healthy and variegated gut biome. As a matter of fact, to the extent that they even do like fecal transplants in people. They take poop out of one person and transplant it into another person to try to stimulate or regenerate their gut biome with some diversity that's, for whatever reason, killed off their existing one. And so the research is really fascinating and really informative. It's hard at this point to be able to specifically identify an individual with a specific concern.
Right.
They're trying to learn to do that. But should they be successful, then you still have the issue of the marketplace and the agricultural programs and social support of the government and so on. But you have also to deal with the habituation and food understanding and desire patterns that people have learned as they've grown up in this environment with these issues. And so I My mind turns to certain things when I'm stressed or depressed for consumption. So what are your comfort foods? What do you crave? What do you need to eat? Is it M&Ms? Is it ice cream? Is it potato chips? Is it beans and cornbread? And what as a child growing up, did you identify certain comfort foods that now you crave certain times of the year, certain events? So I mean, it's just a complex mass. And when in counseling you're seeing somebody that's struggling with all of this, you have to be really supportive of their efforts and help them acquire information to try to sort of cognitively figure out, why am I stuck in this place? Why do I do this?
Before we specifically parse that out, let's go to our break and we'll pick that up on the other side.
Okay.
You know, if you've gotten this far into the show, then obviously you find the show to be worthwhile, beneficial, maybe even helpful. And so I just wanted to say, if you've gotten this far into the show and you want to help us out, even if you don't want to help us out, just do it anyway. Go to Apple Podcasts and rate us and leave a review. That is super helpful. Subscribe to the show on YouTube and hit the bell icon so that you get notifications when new shows drop. That stuff is really, really helpful for us. And I know that Mr. Brett agrees.
Absolutely. Reviews are positive. Positive reviews are more positive, but negative ones are as well, because it helps you decide how to focus and how whatever you're intending to say is being heard.
And the secret is the algorithm doesn't care whether the review's positive or negative.
As our friend Mike Norton says regularly, feedback is a gift.
If it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike. Okay, we're back. And yeah, so you're absolutely right. And so supporting an individual, I think, is not only important, but supporting the individual to meet their goals and not predefined goals that we might have for what we think a healthy person should be.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, and it's just like any other issue in counseling. So how do I do it non-judgmentally? How do I do it embracing you, your wholeness as a person? You are struggling with these issues. They are causing you these distressors in your life. Let's look at your patterns. Again, patterns. When you crave, what are the triggers? Do you know? Can you identify? As you watch a sad movie, then do you crave something to eat because you're feeling depressed? If you have a fight with somebody, do you crave something sweet to make you go away? Do you crave a cigarette? I mean, whatever it might be. Have you habituated yourself so that certain behaviors, which may or may not be objectively good for you. I remember years ago, I had a half-hour drive to get from work home, and I habituated myself. There was a Dairy Queen very close to where I worked. I would drive through and get a big milkshake and consume it before I got home every day. And when I tried to change that, it was really difficult and really resistant. I mean, it's like, but I deserve this. I'm entitled to this. I can afford this. I want this. But I also needed it because my subconscious just kept knocking on the door saying, what about our milkshake? If I didn't get one all the way home, I was in a distressed mood because I didn't have my milkshake. Wasn't good for me. It contributed to other things that were going on that it allowed me to avoid paying attention to.
And that's the place where I think that this new information can be so beneficial, because what we're seeing now, when we look at the literature, is that a lot of those things that we define as comfort food are triggering a response in the neural receptor, not neural because they're not in our brain, but the serotonin receptors and other neurotransmitter receptors that are in our gut. They're triggering those things. So if I take those away, it's like if you are depressed and I give you an antidepressant and you feel great, if I take that antidepressant away, you're probably going to be depressed again. The same thing's true with the gut. If you are used to taking the milkshake and that's triggering a hormonal response and a neurotransmitter response in your gut, and you stop that, then you have to replace that with something else.
Yeah, there's an adaptation period.
Yeah.
That you have to. So, without exposing too much here,
Yeah.
at that time in my life, I had over a half-hour drive home. Going home was somewhat stressful. Being home was somewhat stressful. What I found was the milkshake helped reduce my anticipation and anxiety. When I quit allowing myself to have that milkshake, then the ride home was stressful, additionally, to being home.
Right.
So I wasn't, it's like peeling an onion. It comes in layers. The initial focus is to say, why am I putting on 5 pounds? Well, because you're eating a milkshake every day. Oh, okay. So quit eating the milkshake. Oh, okay. That's not the end of the problem.
It's not. That's not going to solve the problem for anybody who's eating because of these emotional contexts that we're talking about. And you have to either resolve the stress, or you have to get.
So one solution is to say, oh, well, the trigger is driving home. So the answer is don't drive home.
Don't go home. But more correctly, what I am thinking is that nowadays it is not uncommon for a gastroenterologist, if you have irritable bowel syndrome,
that's a thing,
to prescribe an antidepressant. And people say, well,
how's that going to affect my stomach?
Well, because it's going to activate those neurotransmitter sites in the gut. And so there are other things that a person can do, but if you don't do something, nature abhors a vacuum. You can hit your thumb
with a hammer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, you could.
Yeah, it would distract you.
It
You wouldn't
will
be thinking about food for that little while.
But if you do that every time that you need to not think about your gut, you're going to have a messed up thumb.
Yeah, well, that's the whole point of those maladaptive behaviors. So if we can identify them, we can make choices, but we have to have alternatives. So it comes back to consciousness, learning what the triggers are, learning self-soothing strategies that are not as damaging as what you're doing to soothe yourself.
Right.
And so if I put an M&M in my mouth every time I'm upset, and I don't know that necessarily, but what I know is I crave M&Ms at the strangest times, or strangest circumstances. So then we want to try to figure out, well, what are those times? What are those circumstances? What if you didn't take an M&M? What if you taught yourself to understand that's what this means, and instead you did something else, like 10 push-ups? Would that change the dynamic? Don't know. Well, we don't know. We'll try. So if we try, and you try a replacement behavior that involves some physical activity, run around the house 3 times, do 10 push-ups, take a shower, whatever that might be, will that help break your conditioned response to this stressor, whatever the stressor is, of wanting an M&M?
Right. Well, and the reason why I think that knowing the enteric nervous system is a thing is so foundationally important is because we used to believe that you're heavy because you're depressed. But what if what if the fact that you have this enteric nervous system and a deficit in the neurotransmitters in that area of your gut are causing your depression, right? So it isn't, so it helps us understand the human being more completely, and that way we can be more informed in the treatments that we use.
Well, yeah, because then I can use it as an excuse at the very least. Well, I don't have any control over that. That's part of my system that I can't, who knows? So I'm not a bad person. I'm not weak. I'm not inept. I just have a bad gut.
Well, if I'm fine with that. To me, but it's the same thing as if you're recovering and you say, oh, well, it's not my fault, it's a disease, I can't control it. Well, that's true, but you still have to control your behavior. And the person who wants to lose weight still has to take responsibility for their behavior. But this gives you an opportunity now to think in terms of, do I just go to Weight Watchers? Well, that would be fine. And like you, when you were drinking a milkshake on the way home every day, if you stop drinking the milkshake and 6 months later, you're probably going to stop craving the milkshake on your drive home every day. But is that the most effective way? Is just abstinence the most effective way to treat it, and it may not be. You may need to go to therapy. You may need to get an antidepressant prescribed. You may need to start to employ some of these strategies that we tell people to do when they're dealing with depression, to deal with those weight issues, not because you're dealing with the depression that's the result of the weight issues, but you're dealing with the fact that there's this neurotransmitter imbalance in your enteric nervous system.
Yep.
So, can you share with us how you resolved that situation?
Yeah, my wife of 20 years met me at the door one day and said, I think the solution is you shouldn't just come home anymore.
That solved the problem.
Certainly did.
Yeah, because then you were too poor to buy milkshakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So hopefully that was beneficial and informative for people. And as always, we are asking you to get a hold of us through psychwithmike.com, but please specifically go to YouTube and find us on the YouTube, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so that you get notified when new episodes drop. But also go to iTunes and find us at Psych with Mike and leave us not only a rating but also a review, because that is super, super helpful for us. And as always, the music that appears in Psych with Mike is written and performed by Mr. Benjamin DeClue. And if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike.